Good afternoon. This is Chad McDaniel with Execs in the Know. Welcome to today's webinar. Very much appreciate your time of joining us here today. We're going to get started here just in a couple of minutes. I'm allowing everyone to kind of dial in. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday with your families, and here we are in December. I don't know what happened with this particular year. It definitely flew by, and I'm sure everyone's feeling the same way, but we're excited for today's conversation. I think we've got some tremendous insights and value that you're going to see in the reports today, and some of the data discussion or data charts that we're going to be presenting. So again, we'll be starting here very shortly. We got a number of people dialing in. Again, appreciate your time, and I'll start here in about 1 minute. As a reminder for those that are on the call right now, you will, as soon as we complete today's webinar session, you will be getting a survey. You are Execs in the Know customer. I would appreciate you taking a minute to complete that survey and give us your feedback. It only takes a couple of minutes, and we really do value that, and we look at your feedback very closely. So you'll be getting a link of that survey as soon as we conclude today's session. Tomorrow, you will be getting a final link, which will have a recording of today's session, along with a copy of the report and all the slides that you're going to be seeing here today on today's session of webinar. So you will get a copy of the full report that we're going to be referencing today, and you also will get a copy of the webinar links tomorrow that we received. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Judy, if you could go next on this. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Chad McDaniel. I am the president and founder of Execs in the Know. I really want to say thank you to our leaders that are listening today for your time of today's session. I really would encourage you, if you're not familiar with Execs, do take a minute, come to our website, execsintheknow.com. We have tremendous insights and information for our community members around a number of customer experience, multi-channel customer engagement type of strategies and oversights. There's lots of ways we're working within our community. It's really, we've been fantastic working with leaders across all different kinds of brands, sharing best practices and a number of customer engagement strategies. So we hope that we can be a resource to you, and we're here for you. We're advocates of the customer executive, and we've enjoyed meeting some really tremendous people over the years. So, Judy, if you could go to the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to you. And before we introduce you to today's speakers, I personally want to say thank you to the 4 of these individuals. Each of them has graciously given their time and energy towards today's conversation. Obviously planning involved, and how busy everyone is. So I personally want to say thank you to this esteemed panel and everyone that's involved here today. Judy, you have been, COPC have been tremendous partners with Execs in the Know. I want to say thank you. We've worked really closely with you folks over the last few years now on the corporate and consumer benchmarking findings report. You've been a great voice to our community, and I can't say thank you enough for helping us all learn and share and grow in this industry together. So Judy, I know you've got a lot to talk about. You've got some other guests to introduce, so I'm going to turn it on over to you, and let's get started.
Thanks, Chad. Judi Brenstein here with COPC, and I'm going to just take a second here real quick before we get started to allow Chris and Wei, our 2 industry experts, to tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll move on with the webinar. So Chris, if you don't mind going first, Chris with Marriott, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Judy. Hi, I'm Chris Aune. I lead Marriott's chat strategy and operations, and I'm beginning to look at other digital engagement options as well, such as SMS, text messaging, and even virtual agents. As far as the company, Marriott certainly in an interesting inflection point right now in our history. We're working through big integration efforts following our Starwood acquisition, so there's a lot going on.
Great. And Wei, if you don't mind taking a moment to tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Judy. My name is Wei Curtis, and I'm with Choice Hotels. And under Choice Hotels, we service 11 brands of hotels that range anywhere from upscale to kind of mid-tier, lower-scale hotels. And so my purview responsibility includes any contact center that is guest and franchisee phasing on a global scale. And so I'm responsible for the sales and servicing of our customer care group.
Okay, great. And then Jim, if you don't mind telling everybody a little bit about yourself. Jim is the author of a lot of the research that's done by COPC and certainly in conjunction with Execs in the Know. So Jim, if you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My background's really in marketing and advertising, but since 2012 I've been involved with Execs in the Know, heading up this research piece, and it's really been great. The last 2 years I've been doing that on behalf of COPC, and just really excited about this research.
Okay, great. And for those who may not be familiar with COPC, feel free to go to copc.com and look us up or talk to us after this, but we didn't want to spend time selling ourselves to you. So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide. And Jim, if you could tell everybody a little bit about the CXMB Industry Insights.
Yeah, sure. So this particular report, we gathered this data in August of this past year. We had about 8,000 consumers participating in this, and we divided up across 5 different modules in the travel industry. We primarily looked at the airline industry and the hotel industry. So we're going to focus today, I think, more on the hotel side, but if you look at the full report, which I think you'll be getting tomorrow, you'll see that we kind of have those 2 houses divided with the airlines and the hotels. A little bit of a breakdown of the participants. About half of it was leisure travelers, about 20% were business-only travelers, and then about 30% were both individuals that traveled for both leisure and business in the previous year. And this research really is bore out of the CXMB Industry Insights research is bore out of the CXMB series, which is the partnership with Execs in the Know. We've been doing that research since 2012, and quite often the community has been interested in some industry-specific research. So this year we've kind of jumped in with both feet and provided that research. And to look a little bit at what we're going to take a look at today, pretty broad research in this piece, but we're really going to focus on these 5 specific areas. We're going to look at consumer solution use versus what their preference is. We're going to look at multi-channel engagements. We're going to look at the importance of consistency across channels for the consumer. We're going to look at the involvement of third parties in booking specifically for hotels and what that relationship looks like. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about earning loyalty among consumers, both from the business traveler point of view and also from the leisure traveler point of view.
And Jim, Judi, this is Chad. I just want to jump in real quick. And first of all, a reminder, guests, that tomorrow you will be getting a link of all the recording and slides you're going to be seeing today. There is also a chat box function if you'd like to ask a question. We will have a period of questions towards the end. But I do want to say for our audience is that in the report series, this was the first industry we decided to go deep down into the findings in the travel hospitality. And there were some very interesting things when we look at it from that viewpoint. So for all of the folks that represent the travel and hospitality industry, I'll be interested in your feedback after the webinar if you found a lot of these findings consistent to your views or if you're seeing things a little bit differently. But sorry about that, Judi, and I'll now leave it to you.
No problem, Chad. And really, we encourage people to feel this is interactive. We are definitely not the kind of organizations between Execs in the Know and COPC to say, everybody hold your questions to the end. If you have a really pertinent question, you want to ask it, put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure to make this as interactive as we can at the same time. So the first topic that we looked at was solution use versus the preference for a solution use. And the question that we asked was, when an issue occurs while you're traveling, what's your typical path to resolution? In other words, how do you actually resolve that when you're traveling? And by far, I would say that someone being able to speak or to speak with someone in person on the phone or using an automated phone system was clearly the 2 major ways that people typically resolve their issues. But then we followed up, and you can see that here by the bars, and you look, again, you're going to get a copy of all this, but then we said, but compared to what you typically do, what would you prefer to do? So we took these results and we then compared that to what people said they'd prefer to do. And so that's why you see some minus 15 points, plus 7 points, et cetera on here, because that shows you compared to what they said they did versus what they would prefer to do is what this image is showing you. So assuming that the issue could be resolved with the same amount of time and the same amount of effort, which way would you prefer to resolve your issues? And what came out of that was that we saw that there was more preference for, and certainly people still, obviously phone and speaking to someone on the phone was big, but they had a preference for more text and chat, and a preference for more smartphone app or self-help tools than they currently are able to do today. So bigger preference for that, but they also had a preference for less speaking with someone in person or speaking with someone face-to-face, and less of a preference for an automated system via phone or an IVR solution system. So with that in mind, with that sort of outcome in mind, I'm going to turn to Chris and Wei for a moment. Are you guys seeing the same similar trends as this? And if so, how are you guys working to adapt to this shift? And then secondly, in your experience, what's causing this transformation of customer preferences? Chris or Wei?
Yeah, hi, this is Chris. Yeah, Judy, I've got a lot of thoughts on this. It's interesting to see the study really calling out the underserved chat and text channel. Looks like from the results, people would actually use it roughly 3 times more than currently if they had their druthers. And similar for the app and self-help. I think, what's causing this, given a choice, more and more customers just really want immediate assistance and immediate answers. They want things to just be easy, and that's really aligned with what chat and text channel does, and also what digital self-service and apps do. And yes, Marriott is definitely seeing an increased demand for chat. I'd say probably maybe double or even potentially triple of what we're handling today. But I think we're really only scratching the surface, because right now our invitation-based proactive chat isn't something all of our customers even know is available. Sometimes they just kind of happen upon triggering one of our rules and they get a chat invite, so they don't even know that we offer chat. But we are planning to pilot reactive chat, which is links and buttons on the page, doing that in our reservations journey, and I think that'll give us a better indication really what the high demand level is for that channel. But I think the demand for digital adoption is really there, and for companies, the benefits in customer satisfaction and loyalty and in cost efficiency, it's all there. I think the big challenge is really companies need to begin treating these as leading and viable interaction channels that are really more and more visible to customers, instead of treating them like investigations and pilot tests that are somewhat hidden. And also, I think if you look at other industries and what they're doing, like major phone telcos and big financial services companies, many are taking huge steps to minimize channels like voice and really push a big mix of their business to things like chat and SMS and virtual agent. So I think it's really exciting times, and I think we're just starting to see the tipping point here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Wei, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely, much of the kind of issues I would say resonate the same as Chris for Marriott, but I would say we kind of view this a little differently in terms of these channels, more of like a holistic ecosystem. You're right, people, customers, guests want to do business on their own terms and their own time, which is why the immediacy of text and chat and really even through social media and these self-helps have become much more prominent and in the forefront. Today we don't offer text or chat, but it's something that we're looking at pilot testing early in the year next year. But I would say that in terms of speaking with a human being, I think we're seeing a couple of different complexities. One is when they do call on the voice channel, their issues seem to be much more complex, and therefore there's kind of an increase in needs depending on the complexity of your business or the nature of the issue. We're also seeing that where people have choices to go through these automated services or through technology, if these technology channels fail, then it incrementally obviously drives the volume through our voice channel. So they're definitely interdependent, but we're definitely seeing a lot more interest in that digital space.
That's a good point, Wei. In fact, it's a good segue, in fact, to the next section about where the engagement is happening and why it's happening in multi-channel. So I'm going to go ahead and move to that now. So the next question really was, in the process of resolving your issues, did you ever contact a brand through multiple channels in an attempt to resolve a single issue? And what we found was that people were using multiple channels roughly half of the time to resolve one issue. So you can see for business only, it's 45% of the time. For leisure only, it's 46% of the time. And for those who travel for both business and leisure, it's more than half the time. So that's quite a bit of multi-channel use just to resolve a single issue. Now, what causes that? And so the next question we asked is, if you use multiple channels to resolve a single issue, which scenario best explains the reason that you use multiple channels? And what we found was that multi-channel was being forced half the time. And so you can see we've tried to illustrate that here with the business only choosing multi-channel versus being forced into it, even more so for leisure, and then even more so choosing on the business and leisure. So more than half the time people are being forced to use multi-channel rather than having a preference for using multi-channel. Now, the reason that's incredibly important is that multi-channel resolution causes high dissatisfaction when you force people into it. So you can see here, when you're forced into it, it ranges anywhere from 30% there in the middle, causing dissatisfaction, to 31 on the business only, and all the way up to 42. So I know I just said there that definitely it causes dissatisfaction, and you may wonder, can we prove that? But this slide will actually show you that we can. And the key takeaway from this is that choice of channel leads to higher SAT, forcing channel leads to higher dissatisfaction. So you can see on the left-hand side, when people felt like they chose multi-channel, they felt satisfied at a higher rate than whenever they were forced into it. You can see on the right-hand side, not only are the darker blue bars, which is satisfaction lower, they're 21 points and 26 points versus on the left 38 and 39, but more importantly even than that, the dissatisfaction goes higher. And that's an incredibly important dynamic to understand, that forcing people into channels or forcing them into multiple channels leads to higher dissatisfaction. So Wei, Chris, how
Judi?
are, yeah?
Judi, real quick, Kevin's asking a question. How do you define forged? And then we'll go back to Chris and Wei here, but do you have a definition on forged?
On forcing them into a channel?
Yeah, I'm sorry, forced into the channel, yes.
Yeah, so Jim, you could probably answer this more completely than me, but basically you're being forced by a process. So it might be, for instance, the other day I was told to click here if you want to cancel this. So I clicked and said I want to cancel this, and the very next screen said, I'm sorry, you can't cancel this online. You have to call us. So that's an example of a process forcing me into doing multiple channels.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jim.
Judi, this is Jim. I would just point out, too, that the verbiage that you see on the slide is the exact verbiage that we presented to the survey takers. So we defined it simply by forced by the brand's process, and that could be any number of things, including what Judi pointed out. But they could also be forced by the complexity of the issue. And sometimes they could, maybe the consumer is taking that question, those could be one and the same, but this is the exact verbiage that we presented to them.
Yeah, that's fair, Jim. And so the thing on complexity of the issue that the other day I was actually needing to change a flight, change a seat, change a date, change a location, and just the complexity of that issue, I realized as I started to try and do it on my phone, I needed to actually call and have somebody help me with that. Again, that's a complexity of issue. It was necessary for me to use multiple channels to get that done. So that's an example of being forced by process or forced by complexity of issue to do it versus choosing to do it myself. So Wei, Chris, how are Choice Hotels and Marriott encouraging choice while making the channel changes fluid? And what are you doing to drive up both CSAT resolution rates for your multi-channel engagements?
Hi, this is Wei. Yeah, I would say that we're not very good at it, and it's something that we are kind of working through this year and into kind of multiple years. I would say that just because you offer multi-channels doesn't necessarily mean that it may be, again, what the customer is preferring. So I think the first step in that is really kind of figuring out what are all the correct channels to offer, and then more importantly, what is the utilization of those channels, and where does really kind of the preference lie. So I think our first step is to really look at a true omni-channel solution, which we are, and we're putting that in place in 2017 for development. The other piece is as you move in and out of channels, I would say that because of kind of the size of our organization, we're very segmented. So if you have, a reservation issues, you go to one area, and if you have a complaint or another issue, you go to another area. And at the end of the day, people know Marriott and people know Choice by exactly that. They don't care which department takes care of their issue. And so I think we need to do a better job in terms of really kind of understanding that customer journey and how to better simplify what they want to do, where they want to do it, and when they want to do it.
Great, thank you. Chris? You still there, Chris?
Sorry, I was on mute there, Judy. Thanks. Hey, yeah, I totally agree with Wei. Marriott, we're wrestling with this in real time as well. I think the essence of this question is really that nirvana state of omni-channel, where everything is seamless and easy for the customer and the agent, regardless of the channel choice and regardless of moving between channels. And I think Marriott, we're still in a multi-channel world. We interact in many channels, but we don't quite have all the intelligence linked yet between our channels. So I know we're working hard to get there. But I also think some of this is, interestingly, in our contact strategy. The idea of, do we really want to encourage multiple channels of choice? For example, if you're on a certain page and you've got a certain question, then what contact channel is best suited to really solve that? And which contact channel do we offer you as a customer? Do we offer you all the channels or just the best suited channel? And this is something we're working on continually as well. And some other actions we're taking to improve the customer experience is really around technology investment. We're investing heavily in technology that gives us a 360-degree view of our customer. And again, kind of speaking to what Wei said, removing those silos so that we can see where our customers have been on the web, what properties they've stayed, what reward status they might have, or what interactions they've had between all of our channels. We've also invested in survey technology and voice and text analytics technology that I think will give us a lot of insights into areas of opportunity. And I think as these capabilities mature, we'll continue to improve in this area and really get closer to that easy and seamless omni-channel experience for the customer.
Great, and I can tell you all, this is Judy, I can tell you all from a COPC perspective even, we spend a lot of time working with our clients, particularly on this issue of forcing people to do extra steps to the process. And one of the things that I'd say that we most often see this happen is when we're helping them understand how to use their quality process to use for business intelligence. It's a great way to find out how the things that you're doing lead people to not get their issues resolved in one channel or resolved at all, and then ultimately, how do you find out which processes are doing that? Because it's pretty frequent. I mean, I can tell you in the 25 years or so I've been in this industry, I haven't seen anyone write a process that say, let me make this process such that it's going to frustrate my customers, and it's going to be so complex that they really won't get what they want. They typically write them in a way that you know, it's meant to work simply and quickly, but that's not always what's happening. And so using your quality program to find out where you're forcing via process or complexity of issue to take those extra steps is really important.
Hi, Judy, I'm going to ask a question from the audience to any of the panelists here real quick, because I want to make sure I include our listeners today in the conversation. So Linda's asking, feel free anyone on the panel to answer, do you think that messaging makes a meaningful difference when redirecting to another channel? So for example, your situation is complex and requires special attention or care. Any commentary there from the panel?
This is Wei.
Yeah, go ahead, Wei.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not too sure if I quite understand the question.
So I think that Linda was discussing around when redirecting to another channel, if it's a complex, let's say a complex conversation or situation, how do you typically handle that? Or, you know, do you keep them in that channel? Do you try to redirect them to a different channel? I know it probably depends on the situation, but is there a rule of thumb or a certain practice maybe that you follow or you do? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say this is the way. In general, I mean, you know, one of the kind of the trends that we're seeing now is people kind of reaching out on social media, and obviously, if it's a complex issue or a complaint, we definitely like to take the resolution offline. So we will switch channels, but people have to also be confident that when we do switch channels, that there is no degradation in terms of that overall experience. And so I think that, you know, the part in terms of kind of that messaging really kind of falls under understanding kind of the reliability as you switch channels, and also kind of going back to Chris's original point of having visibility across all channels and across all lines of businesses is that ease of effort for the customer.
Okay, thank you. Judi, I'll let you go on.
Great. So the third section that we wanted to talk about was the importance of consistency and kind of how important was that. So the first question that we asked of all three groups, really of everybody, but they were broken down into three groups, is how important is it for travel-related brands to provide you with a unique and personalized experience each time you interact with the brand? And what we found, and you can see here, is that business travelers at 50% in total, if I take the both important and somewhat important, business travelers place less importance on personalization compared to those who travel for leisure at 62 points, and even those who travel for both business and leisure at 57 points. And you'll notice when you've got both documents in front of you, you can see that we are referencing you back to the report on page 14 where you can also find this information. So again, business travelers place less importance on a personalized experience, which might seem odd to some, but when you think about it, you're gonna see there's something they do place importance on. It's just not personalization. Leisure travelers, and I don't think this will be a shock to anybody, when we ask them how important it is for travel-related brands to provide product and service pricing that equals or beats the competition, those who travel for leisure or those who travel for both business and leisure placed a very high focus on price, whereas not surprisingly, business again said price isn't nearly as important to me as it is to these two other groups over here. But here's where the business-only travelers really thought was very important, and that is how important is it for travel-related brands to provide a consistent customer experience online, in person, and over the phone. All three groups actually thought that was important, but that is where, in particular, business travelers said, this is really important to me. So consistency across the channels is more important than personalization or price. You can see that here with the plus 20 points versus personalization, plus 11 points on the business only, plus 20, plus 10 on the leisure only, etc. So Chris, Wei, with that in mind and the thought of building greater consistency, what are your enablers for Marriott and Choice Hotels today for building greater customer experience consistency across the channels? And what are you guys doing to enhance customer experience while creating greater consistency at the same time?
Yeah, hi, this is Chris. You know, at Marriott, we're working really to make our technology for our frontline associates in the contact centers much more intuitive and really usable, so that we can focus our training efforts more away from systems and processes and more kind of towards the soft skills and listening to our customers, really enabling our associates to focus on the guest, on their situation, and what their desired outcome is. I think technology plays a big part as well. The same technologies I mentioned earlier, that 360-degree view of our customers, insights from surveys, and our voice and text analytics are important. You know, our customers really expect us to know who they are, and they really expect us to know what they've contacted us about. And I think it's infuriating when customers have to, you know, when they're going between channels and they have to repeat themselves and identify their problem another time, when their expectation is really that our tools and technology should capture and share that interaction and those previous interactions with the next available associate. So I think that's helpful. And the other thing we're doing is we're investing heavily on a major program to re-architect Marriott.com, really the foundation of Marriott.com, to ensure that all the information that our guests see online is really the same source information that our associates have access to. And I think that will really help promote cross-channel consistency when our customers are looking online and then when they're talking to us or chatting with us.
Great. Wei, how about Choice Hotels?
Yeah, and you know, I would say definitely Chris and I have a lot of kind of similar challenges that we're working on. And again, we're also making kind of technology investments up front. And I think for ours, there's a couple of kind of different avenues that we're kind of looking at. One is from the voice channel. You know, we've been doing business for the last 30, 40 years the same way. And you know, how do you scale experiences of agents on the front line? And so what we've done is actually kind of done a disservice in terms of how we've structured and managed contact centers for consistency, compliance, and scripting. And so now all of a sudden it's now personalization, listening skills, and so now we're having to kind of deconstruct what contact centers have known for the last 30 years. And so that really was our aggressive kind of first step this year, is to really kind of humanize that experience over the voice channel, because they are more complex and because they're the kind of the highest cost channel. So we might as well make a true impact when we do interact with our customers. I would say on the other channels, we're looking to now, we have a lot of information and data, but I think we don't necessarily use it to kind of operationalize improvements. We haven't done it well in the past, and so what we're doing differently is now taking a lot of that data and insights that our quality team is collecting and really pushing it back out to our mobile team, our .com team, to really kind of collectively work on that consistent customer experience. And so before, rather than working in isolation in terms of all the enhancements and all the features and functionalities from a technology perspective, we're integrating more of kind of the human side as to, well, what really are people wanting, or what is the experience that they're getting moving from one channel to the other.
Okay, great. Chris, follow-up question for you. I know you said you all have been working on consistency in the information that's on the website versus what's provided to the agents, et cetera. I don't know how long you've been, you know, working on that particular issue, but are you seeing the gains that you hope to see from that effort? And are there any you know, best practices that you found as you did it, or landmines that you can tell anyone to look out for?
Well, we're still in the middle of it. We actually haven't been able to roll it out yet, so we're still in development. We certainly expect that there are going to be some big gains and some big improvements in I guess the trust of the brand from our customers, and you know, the information that they see, and it's consistent everywhere they look and wherever they touch us. So I'm hopeful, but we're not quite at a point where I can completely answer that question, Judi. But it is interesting hearing Hui's comments to really kind of see how similar our journeys are. I think that's pretty amazing.
Yep, I was just about to say, if we asked everybody to type in "me too" in the chat box, if I would love to see it blow up and see how many people are experiencing these same issues. Hui, were you going to add something?
Oh, no,
Actually,
no.
Chad, this is Judi. This is Chad, Judi, excuse me, if I can speak today. Oh my goodness. Excuse me, Ben asked a question. Are you folks able to discern between leisure and business travel? And if so, how are you contemplating providing an appropriate experience for each? If the answer is yes, great. If no, not today. Any viewpoint on that?
Yeah, this is Chris from Marriott. You know, I'm generalizing here a bit, but if we look at our loyal Marriott Rewards customers, and this may be a little bit different than Choice Hotel, if we look at our Marriott Rewards most loyal customers, I would venture to say that a majority of them are business travelers. So I think we do have a little bit of a purview on you know, how we're interacting with our most loyal business customers versus those that travel for leisure a little bit less. I guess that's about all I can say.
Yeah, and I would say this is Hui, and we're exact opposite. So Marriott is a stellar brand globally. They definitely are geared more towards business travelers, whereas for Choice, a majority of our business comes from leisure travelers. And so today, you know, again, we have the visibility on the back end, not necessarily translated on up to kind of the frontline agents and other lines of businesses, but we do know the profile, and we're working on implementing, we said, better tools and resources to give us visibility on how to differentiate the leisure and the business up front.
Okay, no, perfect, thank you. And Judi, to your question, others experience the same challenges and issues that Chris and Hui have been alluding to. Denise said, me too, and I'm sure there's many others. So,
Great. Okay, let's talk a little bit. This is our fourth topic today of 5, and that is about brands and third parties. We've only got one graphic for you to look at today, and then we'll go straight to Chris or Hui. But the question that we asked was, do you typically book your hotel or resort stays at a booking site like Expedia or Travelzoo, etc., or directly with the property such as Marriott or Choice Hotels, etc.? And I don't know, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of research for each company about this out there, but this is what this result found, and that was that for business only, a quarter of the travelers actually were booking on third party. For leisure only, 29%, and for business and leisure, 28%, which was probably more than I thought there would be. So I was kind of surprised, and I think it's probably grown over the years. But that's what we found, is that a fairly strong presence for third-party booking, which, of course, from all of those in the travel industry on both sides of that coin, you know, presents challenges. So I'm going to go straight to Chris and Hui with a couple of questions, and that is, guys, how can the property brands differentiate themselves from the third-party bookings during the purchase process? And given that many bookings originate with the third party, how do you guys work to ensure a positive customer experience when things go wrong? So really there's two questions, but a little bit of free-formness here for you to talk about your brand and the third-party booking experience and kind of what's going on and maybe what others might be interested in. So Chris or Hui, either one?
Yeah, I'll go. This is Chris from Marriott. So Yeah, I think the mixes that we saw on third-party bookings on the previous slide, I think Marriott is a little bit lower on that third-party mix, but I'm not the owner of that information. But anyway, I think it's definitely an interesting relationship. It's a bit of a partner and competitor relationship when we talk about, you know, hotel brands and third-party booking agencies. And if you think about it, it's really in a hotel brand's best interest, I think, to book more and more reservations directly. Direct bookings usually result in customers that are more loyal, generally have a little higher lifetime value, and also for a hotel brand, direct bookings are usually a little less expensive to manage than third-party bookings. So at Marriott, promoting that loyalty and a bigger mix of direct bookings is really a top priority. And some of the things we're doing to differentiate the direct booking experience is offering things like best rate guarantee. We offer free Wi-Fi, mobile app check-in and check-out. We offer member rates, or member-only rates. And then our loyalty programs, you know, the Marriott Rewards, Ritz-Carlton Rewards, and STG points are only offered to customers that book directly with us. So those are a lot of main differentiators in the direct booking experience that we have now, and I know there are a lot of efforts to identify other ways to show value of booking directly. But with regards to what we can do to drive a positive guest experience when a third-party booking is done, I'm guessing Wei and Choice has the same viewpoint, so I may be stealing a little thunder, but you know, the third-party booking experience can be pretty disjointed. It can be a pretty disjointed journey for the customer, and you know, it can result in, if a customer has to call and make a change in a reservation, sometimes they call us directly, and we have to force them back on the third party. And so that's a difficult experience for the customer. And I think maybe in the future, might be important to find ways to share more and more information between the hotel brands and the third-party booking agencies. Because right now I think it's a pretty detached experience.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Wei?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Wei, and I couldn't agree with Chris more. I mean, I think it is one of those kind of competitive relationships. I would definitely say that the third-party presence is definitely more in line with what your slides have shown. And so a couple of things in terms of differentiation. I mean, fact of the matter is these third parties, like Expedias and Bookings of the world, they have a tremendous amount of marketing budget comparative to Choice. And so the reality of things is, how do we compete against really kind of a booking mechanism that can give you insight into multiple brands and access to information, because people are always shopping around for the best deals and the best locations. And so many of the things that we're doing to kind of combat that is everything that Chris had mentioned earlier with the loyalty program and the specialized pricing. And really at the end of the day, because we are a commodity type business, the differentiation, you know, unfortunately has to stem from when they do have issues or problems that we have to differentiate on that end. Chris is exactly right. When they have issues, the whole journey seems a little disjointed because when we get bookings from the third parties, we have very little information to go on, which is why we have to redirect them. So now it's just a matter of understanding really kind of what's important to the customer. How do we kind of create more stickiness with the customer, so then they understand and kind of realize that when they book directly with us, if there are any issues or they have changes, that we can take care of them in one stop. And I think it's just a matter of time before the third parties kind of figure out that niche. But in the meantime, how we can differentiate ourselves is truly being able to offer them kind of that holistic experience, anywhere from, you know, when they are doing the research for finding and booking a reservation to the post-stay if they've had any issues or problems, that we can effectively kind of handle that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, wait, this is Chris. I just wanted to follow up. So I love your comment. I think what you're saying is basically like you want to fight for that next booking. You may not get the first booking that happened on third party, but you really want to fight to differentiate how that experience is better when they book direct, and kind of bring them into the company and booking direct the next time. I love that. Thank you.
All right. We're going to talk about our last topic here, and that is about earning loyalty. And what we asked is, do you feel that brands do enough to earn your loyalty as a customer? We work with travel quite a bit here at COPC, and I can tell you that some of my clients have always said that no matter how many times they ask this question, the answer is always not enough. And unfortunately, though, for them, they also realize that perception is reality. So what we found in this survey is a high percentage of all the travelers feel the brands are not doing enough to earn their loyalty. It's kind of believable to see that business is a little less so than the other two, but even for business, 43% of those surveyed said brands are not doing enough to earn their loyalty as a customer. Leisure, 54%, and those traveling for both at 63%. Pretty high, not terribly satisfied with how much you're doing numbers. I think we can all agree. However, when we looked at what they wanted in order to engender their loyalty, so we asked the question, which of the following characteristics, so they were limited, it wasn't a write-in question, but which of the following characteristics would most likely encourage your loyalty for a travel-related brand? We see that on the business side, it's a real mixed bag. I mean, yes, there is 27% on the consistency. But overall, it's a pretty broad mix. I would kind of say they want it all. A little bit of everything is what business travelers are looking for. However, when you look at those who travel for leisure only, you can see that price is the most important by far, but leisure only is looking for a little bit of consistency. And then for those who travel for both, again, price by far, but they're looking for some rewards. So with that in mind, that information in mind, we'll ask the question, and then I'll flip back to the chart so people can refer to it while you guys are talking about it. But Wei and Chris, how do your brands gain insight into whether enough is being done to create and maintain and or grow loyalty? And then should the industry be thinking about loyalty in different ways for these different customer groups? And I know, Chris, you started to talk a little bit about that a little while ago, and why it's important for you guys to be able to segment out those business customers. So with that in mind, if you don't mind addressing those two questions, Wei and Chris?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. This is Wei. And for us, you know, I think we had brought somebody on board really to kind of take a look at our loyalty program in general, and part of it was kind of benchmarking and baselining kind of where we fall within the industry. And, you know, unfortunately in many areas we were lagging behind in many of the kind of features and benefits. And so what we had decided to do was really invest in a lot more into our loyalty programs. And so the first part of this year, we made a tremendous kind of revamp within our loyalty program to really do a couple of things. One is to offer rewards much sooner, and to really get more of the marketing out there in terms of, you know, what are the different types of ways that we have changed our program. One of it is, as long as you keep active within 18 months, your points don't expire, that you get points or benefits sooner. We've introduced the digital gift cards that are going well. And so all of these types of things, again, are benefits to hopefully attract, and what we're seeing as a result of that is a pretty good lift in terms of the return that we were hoping for in instituting not only kind of more robust features and functionalities, but more offerings. So now we have greater number of partnerships, like with Uber and Shell and Amazon and those types of partnerships. So we're definitely seeing a good return on the loyalty front. But I think the next piece that we haven't necessarily really looked into is now segmenting those offerings to be able to kind of treat these different tiers. We have different tiers and we do have different benefits, but I don't necessarily think it's as attractive or effective as we'd like it to be.
Thanks, Wei. Chris?
Yeah, you know, like Wei said about Choice Hotels at Marriott, you know, we've got a large group of talented loyalty experts and executives looking at this. It's certainly a big deal for us. I would almost say that it's it's the lifeblood of a brand, right? That loyalty aspect. We measure loyalty member growth as well as active member growth. Those that are actually actively traveling with us. I think that helps us give an indication of the program effectiveness. And I know our loyalty teams are conducting lots of focus groups with customers and non-customers, and they do a lot of benchmarking both inside and outside of the industry to really understand what's working and what's effective. And also we're just now starting to harness the power of our surveys and our voice and text analytics for our Marriott Rewards contacts. So I think that will also give us some more insights on whether our members are happy or where we might have opportunities. But when you look at the data on this chart, and I think Wei alluded to it as well, I think there's a big opportunity in really looking at rewards programs, perks, and how they're organized. Traditionally in the hospitality industry, loyalty programs are really based on that recurring annual volume and nights, which really favors that business traveler, the road warrior. And I think an important set of customers are those people that really only travel 1 to 2 times a year, maybe 5 to 9 nights a year, and they don't really qualify for that typical traditional loyalty benefit. But even though they don't qualify, they're a hugely important customer segment for our success, and we really need to appeal to them and bring them into the lifelong Marriott fold. So I think we need to look at more immediate rewards perks for this segment. And I think we are. Again, I'm not the owner of loyalty by any means or mention, but I think we are looking at these options. And similar to what Wei mentioned, for example, if you stay 1 night in the program, your first program night, you don't have to wait until you've stayed 25 nights. Maybe you get a free Starbucks coffee next door for that first night stay. It's something to just say, hey, we recognize you, we appreciate you. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do like that are more local rewards and more immediate. Basically smaller and quicker for this customer segment that I think is really important for our future success.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So next, Jim, if you don't mind, and then we perhaps have some time for some additional questions, but if you don't mind taking everybody through kind of the key points to today's discussion. Again, you're all going to get copies of this later, but we wanted to kind of wrap things up a little bit. Jim?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Judy. So we're going to look at the 5 points really quickly here. Travelers definitely still largely prefer live human interactions. But as Chris had mentioned, there's definitely some customers that are being underserved in the area of SMS text, chat, app, self-help tools. The multi-channel approach, as Judy pointed out, when you force consumers into this multi-channel approach, it really, really hurts DISSAT. There's some other research that we did that showed resolution rates are also impacted by forcing people into this channel switch. So we didn't necessarily have it for this travel and hospitality report, but we do see those findings in some of our other consumer research. Consistency is huge for all consumers, business especially, but very valued by all the different traveler types. Price, certainly important for the leisure traveler, but the business traveler has a little bit broader needs outside of price for understandable reasons. And then a high percentage of all travelers are feeling that brands could do more to earn their loyalty. So, as Chris talked about, I think brands are going to start to look at new and different ways to approach leisure travelers versus business travelers. So probably some exciting stuff coming on that front.
Jim, I just want to go back to the slide chat here. For our listeners, specifically to point 1 or 2, I'd love to hear your input. If you could just send me a question, just say agree to point 1, disagree to point 1, or agree to point 2. I know we didn't set up a poll for this webinar, but I'd love to hear from some of our audience if you could just say agree, disagree to point 1 and point 2. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Jim, please continue, and we do have some questions from the audience I want to make sure we leave time for.
Yep. Judy, if you want to hop ahead to the next. So a little bit about where this research came from. I think I mentioned up front, we've been doing the CXMB research with Execs in the Know since 2012. A lot of thirst for this industry-specific research, and just keep in mind, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners on the call today that aren't necessarily in the travel industry, and maybe you want to see this sort of research for your specific industry, and if so, please reach out to Chad or Susan at Execs in the Know and talk to them and see what possibilities there are there. This was our first volume. It's something we're going to continue doing. So we are looking at different industries for the spring. So please reach out. Also, all of the CXMB consumer and corporate research is available on the Execs in the Know website. I think we have research going all the way back to 2012. So research that's 2014 or earlier is available for free. You can download it directly. For research from last year and the current year research, you can grab samples of those reports. I think we're charging a price. I think the price is $249 for those. But you can grab the samples and take a look at what's in there. And these are very large, comprehensive reports too. I think this most recent 2016 Consumer Edition report, I think, is 70-plus pages, so a lot of good insights there.
So I did my informal poll. Thank you, Jim. And again, Execs Know will have all of that. If you could go back to the previous slide, I just want to say what people said. I thought it was interesting. Stephen, you know who you are. I highly respect you in this industry. So your opinion, you're close to this based on what you do. You said you agree to both points, 1 and 2. Thank you, Stephen. Denise, you said you agree to point 2. Annette, you disagree to 1, but you agree to 2. And Chris, you agree to both points 1 and 2. So there we go for our sample poll. But it's a larger conversation, and that at some point, that's why we have, if you get to the final slide, Judi, for us, then we'll go into some questions. Twice a year, the Execs in the Know, we host our Customer Response Summit. This is our leadership forum for our corporate brands. We do this twice a year. It's every February and September. We're excited to have our gathering coming in February 6th and 8th in Las Vegas. If you've never been to one of our executive leadership forums, I'd encourage you to come out. They're highly intimate, highly engaged. You'll get a lot of information out of them. In fact, we even offer 50% off for first-time attendees. So tremendous value, and you can find more information about that. We are fortunate one of our keynote speakers is from Hilton. Hilton's going to have a tremendous story that they're going to share with us. So, Judi, we do have some questions, but before I get to there, was there anything else you needed to do on your side before we wrap up and get to these questions?
No, we're good.
Okay, so quickly, I will go through some of these. Chris and Wei, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you. The question was to you two, are you working towards tool integration to create consistency? And yes, no, kind of where you at in that journey? Are you just starting, in the middle, at the end? So Wei, could you start, and then Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say we're probably the early parts of that journey. It really, we needed to wait for our omnichannel solution to kind of be up and running more towards the mid part of next year to be able to kind of help us gain some visibility as to where they've been, where they dropped off, what their journey looks like, to be able to kind of help stitch us that information so that we can now work towards kind of that consistency.
Perfect. Thank you. Chris, anything from you?
Yeah, and same here. We're quite a ways through this journey, but we're not complete for sure. We're working on all sorts of projects. I mentioned that re-architecting of Marriott.com to provide more consistent foundational information regardless of channel choice. We're integrating like 10 or 15 different disparate systems that our frontline associates used to have to use into a consistent single sign-on agent desktop. We're integrating our CTI into that as well. So there's lots of efforts that have just recently completed or are underway to get us to that point. Absolutely.
Perfect. The next one is kind of it's a long commentary with some questions mixed, but I'll try to sort of bring it down a bit and get to the question. So, and I think a lot of the people in the community would agree with this. So, we see two ways to service the customer, reactive or proactive. We hear from them on their experiences, and or we provide reactive services. Or two, we ask poignant or pertinent business questions to position business and the customer proactively. The question is with the latter, let's say called proactive response, you need a platform to kind of find questions, manage changes, gather customer intelligence and future data assets to help you, I guess, on the proactively the side of it. Just wanted to know, do you agree with that sentiment? Is there something specific that you're familiar with in proactive management, and any commentary on that? So I guess we would all agree on proactive management as the focus.
Yeah, absolutely. This is way of choice. And I would say one of the items that Judi had touched upon earlier is that we've really kind of transformed our quality department to where, you know, they're less about compliance and consistency and more about driving business results. So we've really kind of transformed and utilized that team to be able to kind of listen and identify kind of trends so that we can be proactive in terms of outreach, or we can serve up data and insights into our development teams on changing features and functionalities that seem to cause people pain points when they're on their website or on our mobile site or whatever it may be. So that's one of the ways that we've been really kind of been able to take a traditional quality team and really kind of transform them to be much more proactive.
Okay, that's good. And again, I know it's a large question or commentary that we could spend more time on. Chris, I have one more I want to get to. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I would have added is I think the interesting thing is over the next few years, the idea of predictive analytics and really being able to forecast what customers want before they even contact you and provide actions and offers that align with what they're trying to do. I think that'll be interesting, but we're certainly not there yet.
Okay. No, I appreciate the candor and the perspectives. This is probably, this next question quickly, I think is very specific to your world. The travel world makes sense here. You know, we talk about omni-channel and so forth, but do you either today are doing this or considering doing this, or do you think, I guess the question is, do you see a way to connect customer insights with property managers, front desk, say the spa, et cetera, on property, or in a real time as customer provides these inputs to their questions? Is this a capability that is being discussed or a model being discussed, or is that happening today? Does that question, I hope I'm answering it correct, or asking it correctly, but does that make sense, or any comment on it?
Yeah, this is Wei.
Yeah, this is Chris. Go ahead, Wei. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, this is Chris. I was just going to say we're definitely so those technology projects that integrate our systems, make sure we have consistency. Those are far-reaching, and they are hitting our properties. So at some point, yes, our goal is to have that that visibility, that customer 360 view. Hey, if somebody contacted us in our contact center, do they see that information? If they're making that call from right outside the hotel in the parking lot, 3 minutes later when they go into the hotel, are they you know, has that information seamlessly transferred to the property? We're definitely working towards that. And again, it's a work in process.
Okay. Wade, anything to add? And then we're going to close the session with a couple of caveats here.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, I mean, we do the ratings and reviews, and so that's feedback that automatically goes back to our individual properties. And I think we just need to figure out what is it that we want to capture, how are we going to measure it, and then what are the technology pieces that we need to integrate to be able to kind of allow us to feed that information back to the properties, because there's a whole host of different information that the properties already get. Now it's just a matter of, you know, digesting it and having it meaningful to be able to now figure out what's the mechanism for delivery.
Perfect. Well, I want to say to our audience, thank you again. You'll be receiving a survey right after today's session. Please fill out your feedback. I like your candor and thoughts. For execs in the know, and you know, we took a different approach with COPC. We really wanted to deep dive more into the travel hospitality insights. I hope you found that somewhat useful. We look for your feedback as far as ways that you would like to get additional insights vertically focused. But I must say that For our brand partners today, I cannot thank you enough for your time, taking the time and the willingness to share perspectively. You've done a terrific job today with our audience. I think you were very sincere and honest about where things stand and what you're trying to do, and keep up that great effort. So Wei and Chris, thank you so much for your participation and help. And Jim and Judy, again, COPC, been terrific partners in this series. If you want previous editions of our overall reports and findings, please go to Execs in the Know, go to the resource tabs. You can get them all for free on download. And I hope you take that information and use it accordingly in your organization. So on behalf of us, thank you so much for today's webinar. We thank you for your time. Have a great holiday season, and again, appreciate your time and listen. That will now conclude today's session.